Welcome to Too Deep, Hokies Under the Influence, a Sons of Saturday podcast brought to you by Jack and Coke. I'm your host, Pete B, and this is our season preview episode. So we had to bring back the OG, the original co-host of the pod, Robbie. How you doing, man?
I'm here. Hey guys, thanks for having me on. It's been a long time. Hopefully this is like riding a bike. Otherwise, there could be some car accidents here and could get ugly, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and of course we also have Sam here. So we got a three-way preview. This is Robbie's 10th preview. Robbie and mine, this is the 10th one. This is why we have the 10 seasons logo. This makes the logo legit. Sam's got the sticker there. So this is awesome. Sam, thank you for being here. Thanks for filling in for Robbie.
I feel like Kevin Durant here. I just kind of hopped on the bandwagon for the 10 seasons, but in all sincerity, I've said this before, but congratulations on it. That's a heck of an achievement.
Yeah. And why don't we get Rob to give us a cheers and kick this thing off right?
A decade of doing the podcast. I guess just nostalgia cheers. When we originally started the podcast, many people have heard this story, but as years have gone on, probably listeners have dropped off, new ones have come on. But the whole premise was I went out and searched to see, I started getting kind of into podcasts, and I went out to see if there was like a Hokie football one. You and I had been talking a lot about kind of Virginia Tech football at like Arlington bars and stuff like that when we were probably too many deep in some beer. And there was nothing. There was one podcast. I still say it to this day. It was like two dudes that I think were stoned the entire time. So I hit up Pete and I was like, "Hey, you are the most knowledgeable Virginia Tech fan I know. Do you want to do this?" And he said yes, and the rest was history. So cheers to 10 years and a lot of ups and downs, and hopefully a big up for us this year.
That's right.
For the Virginia Tech Hokies.
Cheers. Yeah, it was probably not more than 3 or 4 weeks from the time we met and had beers at Hard Times to the time that we started the show. And if you listen to that first show, it was the season preview for 2015. We are hammered by the end, like absolutely hammered, because it took us forever to figure out how to like record ourselves. And we were drinking the entire time.
I think I must have had 7 or 8 beers by the end. It took us, what was it? It ended up being like 5 or 6 hours for us to get through the first episode. We had no clue what we were doing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure part of my takes most downloaded episode is when they were drunk with Joe Burrow. Like 3 hours after the national championship game. So maybe that was the key to success, and you hit it first try.
Yeah. I guess so. And I was kind of hammered at our Ardent event this past weekend, Sam. we were having a bunch of beers, and I was going back through the footage because we recorded a little something. It's on the feed, along with a lot of shows over the last 2 weeks. We did one with Dax, my friends from college. The Memory Lane show was a really good one. Check that one out. Druckenmiller. I got a chance to interview Jim Druckenmiller. That was awesome. And then the Ardent show. And it actually, despite me being a little buzzed, I actually thought it came out pretty good. So, and that's where a lot of our fall camp notes are.
I thought for a road game, that was pretty good for us.
Yes. All right. Like I said at the beginning, it's the 2024 season preview for the Hokies. We're going to go over the preseason projections, the schedule, position groups, our predictions, and maybe a couple of hot takes at the end. Sonsofsaturday.com and our YouTube channel is where you can find all the stuff we've been doing over the past 2 weeks, 6 months, all the way back to last year when me and Rob finished up the season with the Tulane bowl game recap. News and notes. I mentioned we did a lot of our practice notes at Ardent. So if you're looking for fall camp stuff, that's where you should find it on our last episode. But other things will come up naturally as we go through the preview. Two Deeps Pick'em. We did it last year. We had a winner. And this year we're doing it again. So it's on our Twitter page, pinned to the top of the page. The ESPN link is there. Get in there, sign up before the weekend because there is a game. I think the Florida State game is on that list. I'm not positive. I'm pretty sure it's there. And College Football Monday comes back this upcoming Monday, 8/26. We're moving it to nighttime. So Sam can help me out with some of the shows. And it's just going to be easier for all kinds of guests. And I'm going to release the first guest. Mark Packer is going to join us next Monday night at 8:30. Mark Packer of ACC Network fame. His wife is a Hokie. He's the best thing ACC Network has going, and I am pumped to have him come on College Football Monday for the first episode of the season. So that's going to be a lot of fun. All right, the ODU pre-party. Sam, you mentioned this on our last show. I'm sorry, guys. There's just a couple more housekeeping, and we're going to get to the show.
You're good.
ODU. We're doing a pre-party on Friday night at Aslan, the new Aslan in 757, right, Sam?
Yes, it's in Virginia Beach, a little bit more towards oceanfront. It's a really cool spot. We'll have more details to come, but it'll be very similar to our Arden event, maybe even a bit more casual than that. We're just going to hang out, might have some stuff to give away, might have a little pick'em contest or something for that weekend. Who knows, but we'll have a good time. We'll hang out. It's a great new spot in that area. Property managers are Hokies. They're super excited. So we'll have more information on that coming out, but simple enough. Friday night before the ODU game, Aslan Brewing in Virginia Beach. Show up. I'll be there.
Hopefully it's an upgrade, like from the Aslan that when it first started rolling out and Ruskin, like down the street, it was like out of a garage, and you would roll up and there'd be a 50-person line to get cans of Aslan beer at the time. So again, times have certainly changed.
Looks nice. Like the pictures of the build out looks really nice. So
they turned train cars vertically to create this multi-level. Well, it's so cool. They have a putting green. They have giant TVs. Like it's a sick setup.
Yeah. So show up to that and make sure you like and subscribe to the video. That really helps us out. And this may be one of our most watched episodes of the season. So you want to be in here. You want to be subscribing because we're going to have so much content throughout the rest of the year that I want you guys to stay tuned to. All right. 2024 preseason ranks for the Hokies. In the AP poll, we were not ranked. We are number 27. You go down to the receiving votes. 4 ACC teams are in there and 3 are just outside. It was Florida State as the top ranked team with Clemson and Miami not too far behind. It was Louisville, VT, and SMU all from 26 to 29. So we're filling out that top 30. A lot of ACC teams in there, and that's going to be interesting. I know we increased the amount of teams, and so SMU gets added to that list, but that's a lot of old ACC teams that have decided to come around when the rubber is really meeting the road in college football. We need a good season, Rob.
Yeah. It's one of those, you go back and forth. Would you rather have a down ACC and higher hopes for Virginia Tech, or at least a clearer path for them? I'm kind of the opposite. I want to see a tough ACC slate. Granted, it's preseason rankings, and those could shuffle dramatically even early in the season, depending on how people look, week 1, week 2, week 3. But it could be a good year for the ACC. We've said that in the past over the years, and it ended up being a down year, and the opposite has been true. But this year, it's slated to be pretty decent.
Yes, indeed. So here are the other rankings for Virginia Tech. I said the AP basically put us at 27, CBS 29, Sagarin 40, the Massey Composite is 40, the FPI is 50. And then you have some magazines in Athlon at 27, Lindy's at 29, and Phil Steele, 16 in his power poll, 17 in his top 40. So this is something Sam and I have remarked about before. You look at those computerish polls, if you want to look at Sagarin or the Massey or the FPI, they're lower. They're worse rankings. And then if you go to the magazines, they are a little bit more favorable. I think that's interesting as an observation, is that the humans tend to think that we'll do better.
Yeah.
Why is that, Sam?
Well, I think it depends on how you build those models. If you look at returning production heavily, you're going to love the Hokies. And I think if you look at them based on the strength of schedule they're playing, you're going to love the Hokies. But if you're just looking at what happened last year, this is a team that went 6-6 in the regular season, really didn't have a marquee win in that 6 wins. So you might not give them the benefit of the doubt going into next year, like you would a team like Louisville, who beat Notre Dame last year, beat a decent Duke team at that time, or what you would give SMU, who, although they did play a soft schedule, they won 10 games and they won their conference. So it just depends on how you look at it. At the end of the day, doesn't really matter. I think these things usually first 2 or 3 weeks sort themselves out. You don't normally see a team totally left out of the top 25 that deserves to be there.
What gets difficult for something like that is to take something into account, like programs on the rise and programs that are falling, right? How you could put some sort of weight to like a computer algorithm to factor that in. But I really think that that's something that you really just have to kind of know about the program and where it's heading and where it's trending and how it's gelling. Those are very hard things from a computational standpoint to bring in, and also from a national pundit standpoint. How many people are really in the weeds on what is happening with Brent Pry and the fit that he has with the Virginia Tech program, things like that. So that's where I always struggle, both with preseason rankings and especially with computer rankings, is how do you take those soft elements from a program and build those in? And I just don't know that there's a great way to do it.
The intangibles, so to speak, right? You can't measure the culture that's going on behind the scenes.
And also a lot of these ranking magazines and pundits and, whatever it may be, they do their best. And I think they do, considering their job, they do a decent job. But I think it's also important. A lot of them have Tucker Holloway, first team all ACC punt returner. Tucker Holloway's probably not going to play this year. Anybody around Virginia Tech kind of knows that. So it just shows the knowledge drop off from people who really know Virginia Tech football to the national pundits. There is a gap. As good as they are, there is a gap. Mm-hmm. So I think it's worthwhile.
I also think it's funny because we do those summer previews and we kind of go over the rosters of all the teams we're going to play. We talk about the teams. And then when I go to do the game preview months later, I'll pull up my Duke notes and there will be a player for Duke who is absolutely having an amazing year that's not on my summer preview at all. Like he's just not even in there. Or the new quarterback that I've never heard of. Like Anthony Calandria, not in our preview last year in the summer, like wasn't in there. So it's just things change quickly. But for the Hokies, we bring back so much returning production. In fact, it's 4th in the country, according to Bill Connolly. It's number 2 in Phil Steele's experience rank. So I think with Virginia Tech, for the most part, people are they're going to get what they are reading about like that. I think we have a lot of knowns that are coming back to the field. Maybe some of the transfers might sneak up on some people. Maybe Alec Jennings coming back might sneak up on some people. But for the most part, I think people know what to expect from the Hokies in terms of the names. I also had one last note. Well, SP Plus, number 36. That's another computer model that has us a little bit lower than maybe a human poll.
Counterpoint, beta rank has us at 14.
Okay.
So who knows? Who knows, Pete?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I just, the ones I picked, because you're right, there are so many. And I guess Massey Composite would be the best example because that's like 40 different computer rankings and they have us at number 40 as of right now. And during the year, I think that gets up to like 70 or so computer rankings that they compile every week. Did you guys see the Stu Mandel prediction this week for the Hokies? He's normally pretty plugged in.
He always sets people on fire
and this year was better than I've ever seen him project.
Really?
10-2. He projected Virginia Tech, 6-2 in the conference, and number 3 in the ACC behind Florida State and Miami. It looked like we were tied in the loss column, maybe with a Miami, but I'm pretty sure he had Miami ranked ahead of us. But nevertheless, Stu Mandel, he's been notorious for putting us at like 4-8 or 5-7 all those years.
Well, and he was right. Remember when he came out and everybody was high on inside the program, high on the Hokies, and he came out. What did he project for? Did he project like?
It was like 2 ACC wins or something like that. I forget.
I thought it was like 3-8 or 3-9 or 4-8, and he ended up being like almost like spot on about right. Like when the wheels kind of fell off on everything, and whether he was just going for clicks or not, but I think he still has some good tie-ins to programs, and I think he does get some inside information that helps him with that stuff.
Yeah. You'd like to see the projection be better, right? Like let's go with 10-2 sounds pretty good to me if I'm getting a college football expert saying that. But that was the last kind of preview I had.
So I'm still a season ticket holder. Yes, I don't join the podcast anymore. So I have here the unboxing of the season tickets for this year. They've like started doing this. They didn't used to do it because I've had like club seats for a while. but they do, and they'll probably like fall out everywhere. Look at these bad boys. Like, they do a nice job with this stuff. I'm probably giving away like, barcode information now, so I probably should be careful with that. But yeah, I hadn't opened this yet, so here's the season ticket.
It looks awesome. Yeah, they keep doing like a nicer job with that, I feel like.
Yes, so that's I figured you guys would like that.
And did they give you like a lanyard and stuff to like carry your stuff?
If I really took this whole thing apart, I'm sure I'd find something in here. Oh yeah, there's like a whole lanyard setup back here.
Oh, sweet
stuff. Yeah, so pretty sweet. It's cool. I like it. A little jumping action.
Nice. Yeah, dude, that's great. I think you must be. I feel like I haven't seen anyone release that online quite yet. So that's
I just got them yesterday.
Okay.
Yesterday. So fresh out of the mail for everybody.
Which games are you going to try to go to if you got all those tickets?
0 this year. I'm going to make it to exactly our schedule is a mess, and I'm not going to be able. This is probably the first season in a while. I'm not going to make a single game, and it's horrific.
All right. Well, that leads me into my next question here, and I should have hit this off the top. We have been without you. People have been asking about you. Listeners have been wondering where you are. Give us a quick minute on what you've been doing and what your future plans are.
I'll keep it very short and concise, and it's boring. So I bought a company, a government contractor. I've been in government contracting, finance, private equity for years. Back in November of 2022, I'm running that as the president CEO. We've grown, we tripled the size of the business, and that was the goal. And then as of 2 weeks ago, we completed our first acquisition, a bolt-on acquisition of another company. So that has taken up another like 7 months of my life leading up to the acquisition. And now we're doing integration. So the goal is to keep building it. And then if we keep growing, keep buying add-on acquisitions, because mergers and acquisitions has been most of my career. So I think I kept that to about a minute.
You've been talking to Brett Yormark, and you're the private equity guy who is buying the schools. That's what's going on here.
That's exactly it. And it towards the tail end of it, really towards the beginning of last year, I was spending so much time on the business. One, that it was really, I wasn't showing up for the shows as prepared as I would want to be. And it was hard to get the energy to keep doing it week in, week out. So I knew it was probably best to hand the torch off to somebody else that would take better care and feeding of this great baby we have here. So that's the short and sweet. Not hospitalized, nothing. I'm as healthy as I've ever been. I'm not dead, perfectly alive. I'm swamped. I've got now 170 employees in my company, and there's just a lot of stuff to do. So
yeah, that's it. Well, we're happy for you, man. And we are hoping that you will be the next Mahul. That's what we want.
Yeah.
Listen, I said Virginia Tech has high hopes, I think, in the future, predominantly because of the Virginia Tech graduates. One, not only making great careers regardless of what they do, a lot of engineers, a lot of people in IT, but a significant number of them, if not president, CEOs, or founders of government contractors, are in this space. And the vast majority are looking to build their businesses and sell, leading to a windfall of cash that hopefully funnels its way back to Virginia Tech. So I've been saying that for 8 years, and I think the first Mehul was a big part of that. 1901 Group in Blacksburg, when they sold, there's a number of firms that have Virginia Tech leadership that hopefully are funneling their cash back to the program.
Yeah, I always talk about like the children of Vic who are now becoming 40 and 45 and getting up there every year and have more and more money that they can donate. And my year has always been 2027 to 2029 is when that money will really be like peaking. And that's when we could be peaking ourselves on the football field.
I agree.
Let's talk about the storylines for the Hokies in 2024. I asked you guys to come up with 1 or 2 storylines. And Sam, I will ask you first for a storyline for the season.
Yeah, I really only have one storyline that I think is, and this is more from a national perspective, but can Virginia Tech win a big game this year? we've seen, particularly, can they win the big game in Lane Stadium? Because we have seen the Enter Sandman videos. We've seen the crowd pumped up. We've seen these big games come to Lane Stadium before. And historically, especially later in the season, Virginia Tech has struggled to win those games. Look at the game against Clemson, Notre Dame, couple FSUs in there. They've struggled with it. And I think really the only one they've gotten was that UNC game at home right after COVID. So nationally, I think that is the Virginia Tech is back moment, would be a win against either Miami or Clemson at home. I think would be the Tech is back moment.
Yeah.
So for me,
no, that's
got to win the big one.
That's something people talk about all the time. Very good storyline. What you got, Rob?
My question and storyline is the Brent Pry build, and is this a path to building Virginia Tech towards being competitive in the ACC on a year in, year out basis? I think college football has become more competitive, and I think it's becoming harder to have perennial top dogs in each conference for sure. But are we at least kind of setting the stage to become competitive in the ACC on a year in, year out basis? Sometimes it make it, sometimes don't. Or are we building towards kind of a one and done of, potentially getting in or winning the ACC and then, having a down, 7 to 8 years. And I don't know that right now. I think I'm all bought in on what Pry and the team and the coaches and the administration are doing towards that build. I just don't know if it's going to be a plateau scenario where we go up and then, kind of hold steady, or if it's more of a, coming off of the other back of the mountain and having it come back down.
I had the retention of talent being a major storyline for this year. It's something Rob mentioned last year of how we got all these guys to come back on a team that's not a blue blood, on a team that has been struggling for about a decade. How did we get all the 4 wide receivers to come back? How did we get Tootin to come back, APR? And we did it, whether it was culture, NIL, a combination of both, Brent Pry. The roster is finally in a decent place thanks to that retention, thanks to the portal wins and hits that we've had. And so that retention of talent is a huge storyline and a reason we're bringing back almost the most starters in college football, if not the most. I know people say it's 21 or 22 starters. We lost some DTs, we lost Nazir Peoples, but yes, a lot of our guys are back, and it's awesome.
And I think marrying those 2 points up, is Virginia Tech able to reload or rebuild? Rebuild takes 18 months. Reload takes 6 months. I think Virginia Tech, are they going to be able to, be ready to go and compete for 8, 9, 10 wins next year when I have it written down for wide receivers, like whether they want to or not, they're going to lose their top 4 wide receivers.
Yeah.
That's a lot. And so
all right, Rob,
did you rebuild or reload?
Did you have anything else for storylines, or are you good?
No, I think that's the big one for me. There's a lot of stuff that's in the weeds, but we're going to hit that as we go through the team.
We can say whether it's Kyron Drones' development, the defense, and will they continue to hit the quarterback, all that good stuff. But we'll get to that as we move through our position groups. So let's go to the schedule. And I'll pull it up on the screen for the people watching on YouTube. This is a favorable schedule. It's something that's been talked about a lot. We're in the ACC, not known to be the toughest conference, and we dodge at least 1 or 2 or 3 of the better teams. Like I said at the beginning, VT and Athlon was number 27. If you look at our schedule, there are only 5 teams. What is this? 4 teams in the top 50 of Athlon on our schedule. Wow. What stands out to you here? And Rob, I'll go to you first.
For me, I think the away games being extremely manageable. You have Vandy, ODU, Miami. Obviously, we're going to talk about the Miami game here in a second because it's the big one that everybody has circled. Stanford, Syracuse, and Duke. That is That is extremely favorable to be on the road against those teams. I know I listened to the last episode or 2 episodes ago, maybe it was, when you guys talked about the coming off of Miami and the trip out west for Stanford. So the travel situation is not that great, but from a team perspective and who you have, that's pretty great. Especially if you think about, we had Rutgers last year. Rutgers is going to be much improved this year. For home, Clemson, you get UVA at home this year. So I think, this is what I would hope if I kind of had to draw it up. The only really, really extreme tough game is the Miami game.
Yeah. Sam, what about you?
I mean, I'll be posting my win totals bets here on Twitter in a couple of days. And I mean, 6 of these teams are going to be struggling to make a bowl game. I mean, Vanderbilt, Marshall, all their Old Dominion in there, Stanford in there, Boston College, Duke, UVA. I could even see, Georgia Tech with their schedule struggling. Those are teams that are going to, if they went 6-6, would say, yeah, that was a pretty good season.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is rare in the ACC. I mean, the ACC is usually a conference with a boatload of teams at 7-8 wins.
Yeah.
So I think the next step for this program, I always think back to this when we talked with Dwight Vick when Brent Pryce started his tenure, and it was like, what's going to be for you? Where are you going to see Virginia Tech make that next step? And he said, it's not going to be in the big games. It's going to be when you play an inferior opponent, can you beat the crap out of them? We saw it a little bit last year, but we also saw them struggle in some of those games and lose some of those games. So there are 6 or 7 games on here that if Tech has really taken that next step as a program, they should beat the crap out of some of these teams.
And to your point, Sam, we're probably going to be favored in 10 out of 12 of these games.
Yeah.
The only 2 that we won't be favored is Clemson and Miami.
First 3 games will all be double digits without a doubt. I mean,
and if
Vanderbilt's
you look at
2 touchdowns already. So
yeah, if you look at the S&P Plus like projections of just based on preseason SP Plus and the team we're playing, like all 3, Marshall, Vandy, and ODU are 14 to 17 to more points, depending on home or away. And so, yeah, we on paper and on projection, we should beat a lot of these teams. And that is the question, right? Are we going to be able to do that? While we still have it on the screen, to me, those back-to-back roadies across the country, you go to Miami on a Friday, you got to go to Stanford the following week. Like, that sucks. That just sucks. And Sam is of the opinion, they're young, they're college kids, you get an extra day. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like, we've talked a lot about this. You think they'll be fine?
I mean, is it worth what? How is it worth a touchdown? Maybe, like, can't beat Stanford by more than a touchdown. Like, I don't think Tech is going to lose that game because they had to take a flight. Is that means like it's not ideal.
Yeah,
it's not ideal, but
it's not one flight though. It's one flight to Miami. It's back to Blacksburg. Then it's a flight to San Francisco. So it's a lot.
It's Lady Gaga club, another club, flight, train, another club.
They're a power team. I know it's Stanford. It's Troy Taylor in year 2 though. So I just that arrangement of the schedule. We remember last year we had to play Marshall after back-to-back P5 teams and away at a G5 like we're doing this year again. Too many G5 teams on the road. We lost. And I think that Marshall game, it was a schedule loss.
Yeah. So pull up the schedule real quick. I think the other piece, and just so if anybody's looking. So here's what's interesting, and it's pretty obvious, but if you chalk Miami up as a loss, then if you take care of business at Stanford and we pull out a win against Rutgers, right? You're sitting there at 5-1.
Yeah.
Coming through a bye. Look at that stretch that you have coming down the hill on the way back.
I know.
Right? BC, Georgia Tech, Syracuse, Clemson, obviously a tough game, right? Open, and then Duke and Virginia. If you're sitting at 5-1 on October 12th, we should be licking our chops, for the rest of the season.
And it's scary, Robbie, and I know you know what I'm going to say here.
Yeah.
Syracuse the week before Clemson.
Yeah.
On the road. There's no bye in between. That is Dome, Clemson. Like that is a dangerous, tricky trap. And that's why it'll play into my ranking or record prediction later. But there are, no matter what, whether it's Rutgers, whether it's, GT at home, that's never an easy one. Syracuse in the Dome, Clemson, there are landmines. There's no matter how easy it is. But what you just said too, like you look at it and you could be 5-1 with 4 relatively 3 easy home games, or again, Georgia Tech's not easy, but you get my point. Coming down the hill, because you got a bunch of home games, you got Duke and you got Syracuse, teams that by that point in the season could be really banged up and don't have depth.
Yeah.
All right. I also wanted to point out one last thing. Think about the quarterbacks on our schedule, Sam. What is it? Cam Ward and Haynes King are probably the 2 best quarterbacks we're going to face. But who's the third best quarterback that we face?
I mean,
is it McCord? Is it Castellanos? Is it Klubnik? Is it Pavia? Like
Klubnik? I mean, maybe it's tough because like I love Diego Pavia. I don't know if he's here's general college football. If your team named your starting quarterback within the last week, that's not a good sign.
Yeah.
That is not a good sign because that means it took you 3 weeks of camp to figure out who your starting quarterback is. That's not a good sign.
No.
Vanderbilt was a little late to the game. Makes me think that they were in a battle. Nate Johnson, the backup, presumed backup transfer from Utah. He's fine, whatever. But like, what is UVA going to do? What is I don't know.
This
like
comes back to my point, right? Like
probably
Haynes
Kyle
King and
McCord.
Cam
Actually,
Ward,
I'm going to go with Kyle
probably
McCord.
I went with McCord.
I'm going to go with
I think
McCord.
it's probably Kyle McCord, and he's in a new spot with new receivers and new tight ends, and that's I say tight end because that's his best weapon. It's favorable from that perspective as well. If you look at the quarterbacks we have to face, because one of the best teams on there, Clemson, on our schedule, I don't think their quarterback's very good, and that helps when you have that quarterback in your house in November. What are you more worried about, Rob? At Stanford or Georgia Tech at home?
Georgia Tech at home. I think
Sam, what are you more worried about? Rutgers or Georgia Tech, both at home?
I'm going to say Rutgers because Georgia Tech that'll be the start of their we're pretty beaten up phase. They'll play Notre Dame the week before. I think they have a road game like at North Carolina, but before that, I think Tech will be pretty fresh Thursday night at home. I feel good about that one.
Haynes and they'll just have beaten Notre Dame.
Interceptions. I would love that. I would love that, Robbie. I would love that. I think Rutgers is a tough matchup for Virginia Tech.
Did you guys see the news today that one of Rutgers' starting linebackers tore his ACL? So
second time in 3 years.
Not something we want to hear, but it will help us on game day. I would have to imagine. And then finally, my last, what are you more worried about? Syracuse on the road or ODU on the road? Rob, what do you got?
Oh, shoot. I'd say Syracuse on the road. I don't think ODU. I think they will get. I think they'll get full attention at least, and I think you could get like a snake bite from Syracuse that you weren't kind of prepared for. That is my worry. Is I don't mind if people if we're afraid of a situation. That's fine because at least everybody's like looking at it, they're prepared for it, they're focused on it, etc. It's when everybody's like, it's Syracuse, don't worry about it, and that's when you get in trouble.
I think you're right that both those games will have our attention. Sam, what are you more worried about, Syracuse or ODU?
ODU because it's first, and I think it's ODU is a 1000% a can't lose game. I have my little labels for each game.
True.
Like you cannot like the
angst.
I don't think it is hyperbole to say that the reputation of the program is on the line in that game. Like I truly don't. If you lose that game again, that's going to be so tough to come back from.
You can't lose it,
and you're going to lose some players. Some, not everyone, but you're going to lose some guys if you lose that game.
Like lose the locker room too.
Yeah,
a couple guys fine. Yeah.
Some guys are going to check out.
Yeah, and we never won there. We've only played there a couple times, but we got to do it this time, guys. All right, let's take a moment to talk about our sponsor before we get into the position groups. Two Deep Hokies Under the Influence is brought to you by Jack and Coke. The Jack and Coke can is on the screen. 2 legends, 1 can, Jack and Coke. The #1 cocktail in the world is now available in a can. Yes, it is true. Jack Daniel's Tennessee whiskey mixed with Coca-Cola, 0 sugar or regular, are available in a can at your local grocery and convenience stores. 2 legends, 1 can, Jack and Coke, ready to drink. That's right, RTD. Probably heard that terminology. Those are all those ready to drink cocktails. There's no need to mess around with all these weird ones. Jack and Coke is one of the originals. Buy it in a can. Don't need to bring the 2-liter bottle. Don't need to bring that glass bottle of whiskey. Just grab yourself some cans, throw them in the backpack, and you are good to go. And as always, drink responsibly. Jack and Coke.
Those 2-liter bottles get flat. You get to like the second half of those things, and no matter what you do, even if you're like as careful as possible and like put it back carefully, by the time you open that thing 3 or 4 times, it's flat.
And in the heat, forget it.
Yeah, and you can't shotgun a 2-liter of Coke.
That's right.
So,
yeah.
All right, we split the position groups up among the 3 of us. Anyone can comment as we kind of move through here. Just need somebody to start the conversation. We all did our QB research, and we'll do a quick chat on special teams before we go to overall offensive and defensive thoughts. And there are a few battles that we're going to address as we move through here. Starting spots at left guard, right guard, maybe a safety, a defensive tackle, even tight end is in question. The VT offense, let's start there. And I would say this to just kind of set the table. They took a massive step forward last year. I don't know if you guys remember 2022. You probably tried to forget, but we were 125th in SP Plus in 2022. And we're projected now in 2024 as number 43 on offense in the SP Plus. That's a big jump in 2 years. And the only people we lost on offense are Daquan Wright, Grant Wells, and Frady. And we got back Nick Gallo and Allie Jennings. So that's a pretty big net positive there. And we brought everyone else back. 50th in yards per play a year ago. That's up from 119 in 2022. Think about that 70 spot jump in yards per play. Mm. The scoring offense still has room for improvement. We were only 56th in that. And that can still go up. But both of them, immense improvements over 2 years ago. In our last 4 games, we actually averaged 33 and a half points per game, which would have been good enough for a top 25 offense. That's how much we improved as the season went on. Let's start with wide receiver, and let's start with Sam. Everyone's back, Sam. What do you got in this wide receiver room?
Yeah, so I'm going to go over kind of the starting 3 and then the next 3 behind that. So your starting 3 is going to be Ollie Jennings the third, Jalen Lane, and Daquan Felton. Feel really good about that 3. And then behind them, I think you got Aiden Green on the outside, Stephen Gosnell on the outside, and then someone we haven't talked about a lot in that 2 deep, Xavier Turner Bradshaw. He's the speedy guy, can come in, play that slot role. They like to run him with reverses, jet sweeps, all that stuff. I think he's going to touch the ball a bit more than people think. So you feel really good about the 2 deep. You might see some young guys coming in the 3 deep, Chance Wiggins, Brody Adams, guys like that. So really excited for this wide receiver room. My big questions are for them, 2 of them. How do they get everyone involved and keep everyone involved? And who is the go-to guy? It's 3rd and 8. Who are we going to, right? Because you have a year of building rapport with Felton or with Lane. However, I think from what we saw at the beginning of last year and what we saw in the spring game and what we've kind of heard in camp, Ollie Jennings is wide receiver 1. He's the X, if you know football terminology. Like, he's going to be your main outside guy. So I think they're going to have to throw the ball a bit more than maybe they even want to, just to get guys involved and get the ball to their playmakers. And I think the go-to guy has to be Jennings. You brought him in to be the go-to guy. I think he's the highest ceiling of all of them. But I see it's going to be tough to get everyone involved, though. Really tough.
I mean, Rob, we saw it in game 1 last year, right? what he can do.
Yeah.
It was so painful. And quite frankly, a testament to all the other guys that stepped up and let us and put out the production for us even to have this discussion, right? It could have been everything was a mess last year in the receiving game, and hopefully this year Ali Jennings makes everything great. And that's not where this team is at. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about trying to fit people onto the field, not actually is there anybody that we can put out there. So I'm very interested. I'm extremely excited to see what they do. And this is a very extreme example of this. But if you go back to Ohio State and Harrison Jr. and what he did, sometimes he was only getting 4-5 catches a game, right? In your mind, you're like, this guy is doing everything. But in reality, the danger of him quickly became the benefit of all the other wide receivers, tight ends on the field. So and I'm not at all saying that Ali Jennings is going to be that kind of talent who is quote, pretty much a generational talent at wide receiver. But my point is if you have somebody that good and you can get them out there, you can open up even more for Felton and for Lane in the receiving game. So they may just be happy with the distraction of having somebody like that on the other side of the field.
We've said this, and I know our fans know how good Ali Jennings can be. I think a lot of them did their research into Ali Jennings and heard a lot about him before he ever stepped on the field. But out of sight, out of mind for a lot of people. But he had the third in the country in yards per game 2 years ago. He also had the third most catches on throws 20-plus yards of anyone in the country in only 9 games. So the third most long catches in the country in 9 games 2 years ago. Everyone around him from that year, I said he was third in the country in yards per game receiving 2022. Everyone around him was drafted, whether it was second round all the way down to the 6th round. Like, he is talented. That's the kind of player he is. He had 1,000 yards 3 years ago. He had almost 1,000 yards 2 years ago. He had 2 touchdowns in 1 game for the Hokies. He is really good. That's what I'm trying to get across here. And you add him to Lane and Felton, the guy who is just a freak of nature athletically and made the freaks list, and bring back a reliable guy like Steven Gosnell, even coming off an injury. He's worked his way all the way back. One of the hardest workers on the team.
Yep.
It's so exciting. And we're not even talking about yet Aiden Green and Brody and Chance and Chance. And so it's awesome. What an incredible room.
And that's why I have Ali Jennings as a national breakout candidate. If he is the wide receiver 1 on this team, I think he's a guy who is nationally going to get talked about. And then I think Felton might be the most important piece though, because if Felton continues to be a deep threat and shows that he is a deep threat, consistent one, that's going to free up Felton. It's going to free up Lane. It's going to free up Jennings. It's going to free up your tight end a little bit from getting safety over the top coverage and things like that. So I feel like Felton being a deep ball threat, especially early in the season, is going to open up this offense big time.
8 touchdowns last year for Felton. That is the 3rd most receiving touchdowns in school history, tied for 3rd. Wow. So he did really well picking up the slack for Ali Jennings last year. Let's move to running back, and that was Robbie's area. What do you got to say about these guys, Rob?
Known quantity. Once again, here we got a senior and a junior, Bashal Tootin and Malachi Thomas. I think it's been a long time since I felt this confident about not just the number 1, but the number 2 running backs that we have in the program coming out. There have been plenty of seasons that we've covered, Pete, over the last 8-9 years where running back 1 we felt kind of good about, but I don't think I've ever felt this strongly about a 1 and a 2 coming back. Tootin last year, 850 yards, over 1,100 all-purpose yards. I think the only question I have for Tootin and what I've seen in his ability to perform is really not a question with him. It's really more of a question of just the offensive line. And if they continue to give him openings, he'll be in great shape once again. I'll be interested to see if we use him more on the outside or if he stays interior on his runs, those sorts of things. But it's I think he's off the charts in the kick return ability as well. Behind those two. And Malachi Thomas last year, I think he had 400 yards or something along those, and he'll be great in spelling Tootin, and I think they'll use them a bit interchangeably as the game carries on. Some other guys, you got Coney, Prelo, Tyler Mason, but fingers crossed, those guys are seeing garbage time kind of performance, and maybe. Usually we'll see, even in a game that we're winning, we'll typically see 3 running backs, sometimes 4. If I go back and think about Black getting on the field and some of the other folks. But for the most part, I think these two could probably handle the business that needs to be done.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. And Tootin was shy of 1,000 yards last year, and that was with usage at times that I thought could have been significantly more. I know he had a period where he was a little banged up, and he was doing a lot for us. You mentioned the kick returning. 14 total touchdowns last year for Bashal Tootin, 6th most in school history by a non-quarterback. He had a hell of a year and did it in every way. And the broken tackles, the guy is he could be 1,000-yard rusher on so many schools.
To be fair, I think half of those came in the first half against Old Dominion. So I think it'll be really key for Virginia Tech to keep him at 100% towards the end of the year. Like, I would love to see Malachi Thomas get a lot of run in these first few games.
Yeah. And Malachi has bulked up significantly over the last couple of years. Malachi, fun fact about him, highest passer rating in VT school history because of his 1-for-1 for the touchdown in the Syracuse game.
That's right.
Hang the banner.
I don't want to do special teams here. I've always had an issue with this. It concerns me. I get it. Put your best guys on special teams kind of thing. To Sam's point, you have to keep Tootin healthy. So I just hope we kind of throttle the kick return appropriately and make sure that Tootin's not, if he gets some crazy weird injury in like game 4 on a kick return, it's like, I don't drink anymore, but I'm going to throw something. I'm going around.
Now I hear that. Yeah. And I feel as if we are at a point now with the roster, you should have enough athletes to not have Tootin back there every time bringing back kicks. I want to see him sometimes. He's so damn good at it.
Yeah.
You got to put him back there at points, but I hear you, Rob. All right, let's move to tight end. Sam, you kind of did the receivers for us. What about these types of receivers and these blockers? What do you got at the tight end position?
Let me get to my other page here. If you hear
got handwritten notes, oh yeah,
I handwrite all my notes. Okay, so starting 2, it's gonna be Benji Gosnell and Gallo. I think Benji Gosnell will probably lead the tight end room in receptions pretty easily, and then I think Gallo will be more of your classic old school tight end, blocking a lot, chip, run a little out route, be the safety valve kind of guy. Behind them, again, this is another position where Tech is building good depth. Harrison St. Germain is a guy who came on really well towards the end of last year. And Zeke Wimbish, a guy who was really under-recruited out of Nova, has impressed on the practice squad. I think he'll get a little bit of run here, probably more in garbage time, but a guy that they really like. So it's another position group where they have depth as well as top-end talent. My big question is, how are they going to use a guy like Benji Gosnell with so many darn good wide receivers, a running quarterback, and Tootin, who might be your best all-purpose player?
Yeah.
How many snaps are we going to be able to have? And Benji Gosnell, remember, this is a guy who was a mid-tier to high 4-star recruit, has had some injury issues. Can he stay healthy? That's very big. If he can, he's a big breakout, potentially all ACC breakout candidate on this offense, because I could see him scoring a lot of touchdowns in the red zone.
What I love seeing sometimes, Sam, is I like getting those guys out on the field just to get the DBs kind of screwed up in their vision and what they're looking at, right? When the sizes change and all of a sudden, if he's out there and there's another threat. Not so much that you would ever think of him as being a replacement for one of those wide receivers, as much as just kind of throwing the defense and the linebackers and the defensive backs just a little bit off kilter, right? You make a substitution, all of a sudden it's like, okay, wait, hold on. And you go from, something that might have been 3 wideouts into, looking like you might be thrown to a tight end. And it just gets people a little bit off kilter. But to your point, how many times can you do that, and how many receptions? Because really, Tootin can catch out of the backfield too, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, so that is another set of hands that you're trying to get a ball into. And from what I recall from last year, it's been a while, but Tootin looked good catching it out of the backfield.
27 catches.
Yeah,
he caught a lot of balls.
And I think what it does for you too, a guy who's versatile like Benji has now, I could see a world where Tech is running. They'll have 1 running back, 2 wide receivers, 2 tight ends, and they'll have those tight ends out in kind of like slot positions off the line, run, hurry up. All of a sudden, boom, you bring those guys in. Now you're in a power formation. That's going to throw the defense off because you can do that complete formation change without making a substitution. And because of that, the defense is not awarded the time to make its own substitution. That could be something they utilize a lot this year.
2 tight end sets. Something we heard about 2 years ago, last year, and the Gallo injury probably eliminated that possibility. His blocking, in addition to the improved O-line, I think will be an asset at times. But I agree with Sam that I think if you got the coaches honest, Benji is probably the best
Benji's
tight
the
end
dude.
on
Benji's the dude. Yep.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a moment to talk about our other sponsor. That's Rhoback. They put out the new release. They got a couple really sweet polos and an awesome TV hoodie in the maroon and a quarter zip. You guys need that. Use code 2DEEPVT for 20% off your order from Rhoback. You may have used it last year on your email. Get a new email. Get your wife to order for you. And also tell her to order something for herself. They got joggers. They got tennis skirts. Those little dresses that are super cute. Grab those. But the new drop is amazing. Make sure you use code 2DEEPVT for 20% off your order. Rhoback Crave Activity. Sam, are you drinking a beer tonight? Do you have something over there?
Oh, yes, I do. I'm pouring the rest of it today. This is the last of my summer beers because for me, this is kind of like the last summer whatever.
It felt cool out today.
It was nice out today. Yeah. This is another one from Virginia Beer Company out of Williamsburg. I've had them on here a few times. This is a brewery that I think you find more in tap rooms and bars in the Virginia Beach Tidewater area than you do Richmond, but they are out of Williamsburg. This is the Sweet Relief Pineapple Wheat Ale. Pretty cool can. I'm a big wheat ale fan. And this is, it's nothing incredible, but it is really tasty for, I think, what they were going for. A really light, sweet beer. It tastes like a classic American lager, but it has that little pineapple hit, a little bit of the smoothness and like honey sweetness that you get from wheat ales. I really like it. If it's hot outside, this is a great one to be able to chug at the beach, at the lake, wherever it may be. So Virginia Beer Company Sweet Relief Pineapple Wheat Ale. I'm going to give it a 3.75.
Nice. And you know what? If I make my way down for that ODU thing, I'm undecided. I'd like to be there on Friday night and then maybe watch the game in DC or something. But I want to grab some of that Virginia Beer Company beer. Never had it. Heard good things. I'd like to get my hands on some. Rob, are you on the green tea tonight? What you got?
I'm on green tea. Yep. Right. I'm Emperor's Cloud and Mist, Starbucks style, and it's delicious.
I am drinking a beer that one of our listeners brought to the Arden event. And that event was so fun.
Amazing.
And I have to shout out our listener, Eric, who brought me this. It's called the Uniter. It's an IPA from Rich Brow. Rich Brow is Richmond Brewery. I think they've been around for quite some time. And it was actually a collaboration with Crazy Rooster Brewing Company. And this guy on the can, they called him the Uniter. His name was Tim Torres, co-founder of Crazy Rooster. He passed away from pancreatic cancer. But he brought breweries together. He brought people together. And so they did this beer in his honor. And it was a collab between the two breweries. And the money goes toward the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network. Pancreatic cancer is what my grandfather passed away from. So this is near and dear to my heart. And thank you, Eric, for bringing it. And then my other beer that Eric brought was the Carousel. This is another rich brow. And this, Sam, you would love this thing. Imperial Sour, blueberry, lemon, and lactose.
Ooh.
This thing is good, man. And it's not too sour. He told me, he's like, Pete, I know you're not a huge sour, and I probably should have given this to you, but I had a cooler in my car and I just threw it in there. But it's good. This is a really tasty beer. The Carousel from Rich Brow. Thank you, Eric.
I should have given it to you, but I didn't.
Now I'm drinking it. You're going to have to go buy it for yourself. I'm sorry. But thank you, Eric. I'm not going to put your last name out there. I did put these beers on Instagram. I'll put them on Twitter later tonight, but they're both really good. The Uniter is a 5.5% Cashmere and El Dorado hop beer. And we won't get into hops, but I know Robbie knows a lot of different kind of hops. That's a good combination right there. And it's very tasty. But yeah, the Imperial Sour, this thing's 8%. You don't get too many of those sours that are like, are they normally that strong?
Usually like 6 to 7.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there. So 8's a little steep for them.
That's why they had to put the lactose in there. They had to numb some of that alcohol and that tartness. All right. Offensive line was my position. And it was nice not to lose our offensive line coach for the first time in a couple years. Ron Crook sticks around for year 2 after being thrown to the wolves last year when Joe Rudolph unceremoniously left us for Notre Dame. And I thought Crook got more and more out of our O-line each week, particularly in the run game late in the year. But it was definitely our worst position in 2022 and looked like it was going to be really, really bad again in the beginning of the season. But it did turn around, and coming into this year, Athlon ranks us as the number 9 room in the ACC. That you might not think is very good, but actually this year in the ACC, there's a number of good offensive lines. It's actually way better than it was just a year ago. And I think ours could move up that ladder. The ones, Xavier Chaplin, Braylon Moore is probably going to be in there, Caden Moore and Parker Clements. And so the question I think is it going to be Ganem in the 5th spot or Schick in the 5th spot? And lately, from what we're hearing, practice reports, Lath is pushing to be the left guard. And I think they're going to move Caden to right and put Braylon at center, or is it the other way around? A little hard to say at the moment, Sam.
I think it's a little hard to say. I mean, Billy Ray, who played offensive line at Tech, he'll tell you this. Offensive line coaches do this all the time. They mix guys around in position groups. They all do it. The continuity thing, they really only try to establish towards the end of fall camp. So like where we are right now. So I think the reports we get in the next few days, those will be a lot more telling than what we saw maybe last week or the week before.
I would say that we go 9 deep. And so if you want to say it's Ganem or Schick along with the other 4, that's 6. And then I'm going to add, Ganem or Schick. I'm going to add Garrett. I'm going to add Cunningham, and I'm going to add Meadows to that list to get us to 9. I think a Gunnar Givens is maybe 10 or more. I mean, it'd be nice to see him doing something at some point for the team. I had to mention his name because he was such a high recruit. Everyone else is pretty young. And so it's really like, but the ones that are older, the ones that have been playing offensive line for a couple of years, like I feel comfortable with those 8 to 9 guys.
I feel comfortable with this offensive line unit not losing Virginia Tech a game. And we haven't been able to say that for the past 2 or 3 years. Yeah. So I don't think Tech will see a game this year where the offensive line is completely overwhelmed by normal college football talent. Like Miami has a ton of NFL dudes. Clemson has a ton of NFL dudes. They're going to make plays. It's okay. It happens. That's part of the sport. I don't think Virginia Tech's offensive line is going to struggle against Rutgers this year. I don't think they're going to struggle against Marshall this year. I don't think you'll see that.
So where do you guys think we finished in yards per carry? And I'm putting this as a reflection, not just on Tootin and Drones, but on the O-line. Rob, where do you think we finished in yards per carry as a team last year?
In the ACC or like overall?
National.
Yards per carry.
Well, I mean like ranking. So 1 to 134. Or
yeah. I would say in the 40s.
We were top 25 in yards per carry last year. Number 24 in rush yards per carry. Not as good in tackles for loss allowed. We were 58th. So you can kind of see like the pass protection still has to come along, but the run game really improved. And if they improve in pass protection, it could really take on a whole new strength for us.
Tech led the ACC in rush yards per game in conference play.
Wow. That's incredible.
Over 200 yards a game.
All right, so our beer break is out of the way. Ads are out of the way. Let's talk about quarterback. The most important position on the offense, the most important position on the team. And for once, we know for a fact who our QB1 is. Fuente never liked to tell us too early. And last year and the year before, was it Grant Wells? Was it somebody else? We know it's Kyron Drones. And he's a redshirt junior. He's 6'2". He's 234. He's a beast. He's strong as shit. He can squat like 585. And he's been working out with Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward, maybe learning a thing or two about those more experienced quarterbacks. Who wants to kick us off with the Drones analysis, storylines? Rob, do you want to start?
Well, yeah, I don't know if it's so strange having consistency and confidence at the same time, not just consistency. I think this will be. I think last year what we saw was athleticism, strength, a couple games that he put on his shoulders, quite frankly, and carried for us. And this year with this offensive line, the weapons that he has around him, I'm putting a pin in this because I don't know. We're really going to see Kyron Drones like the true kind of quarterback and whether that potential is there for him versus an athletic freak that can win you a game, keep you close in a game if he needs to. And I'm excited. I'm thrilled to see that. Hopefully that development and that upside potential into the true quarterback form of a person also has the threats of what he can do in the run game versus a defense.
Sam, what do you have to say about Kyron going into this year?
It's like having that go-to like hoodie that you put on at night, or like your comfort show that you put on to go to sleep. Like that's how I feel about Kyron Drones right now. Like I know what I'm gonna get. I know the kind of person he is. I know the kind of player he is, and I don't have to worry about it. Like it's there. It's consistent. This is a guy who is probably, if he does what he's supposed to do this year, he gets to like top 5 quarterback of the 21st century easily.
For Tech. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Not in total.
I know what you meant. Yeah, I know. Yeah. I know what you meant.
And I think like statistically, we talked about this a little bit in a text thread today, but statistically, he's not going to be amongst the best in the nation, right? Like he's not.
You're pumping the brakes on the Heisman talk?
He's not winning the Heisman, guys. He's not winning the Heisman. But if Tech's offense works how it's supposed to, he shouldn't have to win the Heisman. Like if he stays within himself and he stays within the offense, he's going to be dominant and he's going to be efficient while doing it. And I think that's the most exciting thing is we saw some of those years, some of those games with like a Gerard Evans or Logan Thomas, where they had great moments and they had great plays, but they also had bad moments and bad plays. And Kyron Drones has done such a good job at avoiding bad plays. And I think that's really the key to this offense. There are so many playmakers. If he's 1, stays healthy, and 2, keeps himself out of trouble, this offense can be really, really special.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I'll lay my thoughts out for Kyron like this. I've done this with Wells. I've done this with Burmeister. The bear case for Kyron is that the floor is still pretty high. Like that, like there's not, like you said, Sam, we kind of know what we're going to get. If he doesn't improve his deep ball, if the accuracy stays below 60%, if he's not as lucky with balls that could have been intercepted and weren't, and his ratio tumbles a little bit, and he only hits 2,500 yards passing, and he has to rush a lot again because things are just breaking down and not working well, that would still be probably a 25 touchdown year. Like he's probably, if he stays healthy, his bear case is probably one of the better quarterback years. I know this sounds crazy, and maybe the bear case is worse than this, but not to me. Like, I still think it's probably a pretty solid year. The bull case, and if you're making this, more weapons than he even had last year, because he should have Allie Jennings for a whole season, starts from day one. We have an identity already. Another year of training, another year of an actual year of starting experience. His accuracy improves from 58 to 63, hits more deep balls, rating gets to 150, only has to rush for maybe 400 yards because he's throwing for 3,200 yards. That is the bull case, and that would absolutely put him maybe on, like, right, getting close to Gerard Evans' 4,000 yards from scrimmage, throwing and running. So that's the bull case. 31. If say he got to 31 touchdowns, he had 22 last year total. If he got to 31 plus, he would be second behind Gerard for most touchdowns in a year by a quarterback. So he has that ability, and give him 12 games, 13 games, maybe 14 games. We make the ACC title, maybe more if we make the playoff. He can put up some serious numbers, and it's extremely exciting, but he has to be more efficient. His QBR and his passer rating have room for improvement, particularly the QBR, which I think maybe he was hurt by coming into those games early on, like playing a snap at ODU, playing a couple snaps at Purdue. But man, the bull case is super exciting. And I think that's what a lot of the pundits are projecting. I mean, Tom Fornelli has been all over this, right, Rob?
Yeah. Yeah. I think if you in the first 3 games chart the number of yards that he has on the ground, divide that into the number of yards for all the rushing yards, you will get a sense of the development pretty quickly. So the lower that number is, the more I think he's going to be in lockstep with what the development is we're hoping to see. And he may break a couple off or something like that kind of skews it, but the point remains the same, that I think if he's running a lot early, and it's not that would be concerning for me in terms of the development that we would hope to see from last year into this year. The upside is off the charts.
Yeah. At backup quarterback, let's mention this. Hopefully we don't have to use these guys too much, but it's Pop Watson, it's Colin Schlee. We bring in Colin Schlee from UCLA. He was at Kent State before that. Has a lot of college experience. He's played 31 games, 18 pass touchdowns, 7 interceptions over his career, a decent rating for what he's been, and over 1,100 rush yards in his career. What he does, Sam, is similar to what Kyron Drones can do. In a pinch, you wouldn't probably have to change the offense too much if Schlee were to come in.
Yeah, and he's a really impressive athlete too. I mean, he's big. He's about 6'5", runs really well, runs with a lot of power. He's a very downhill threat guy. I think if he comes in, the offensive scheme doesn't change. What the offense can do doesn't change. I don't think he has Kyron's high upside as an athlete, but he certainly has an upside as an athlete. So I think it's probably the best backup situation you could possibly ask for in this day and age of football.
Yeah. And you have Pop Watson there as well, who's been giving Schlee trouble in camp. We bring in Schlee and people think, all right, he's got starting experience. He's the number 2. Well, Pop said, not so fast, my friend. And he's not as big as Schlee. He doesn't have the experience, but he has a natural playmaking ability that we've seen flashes of. And he's younger. And if you wanted to play the guy who has more future upside, you'd play Pop. And so some of our fans, Rob, when we brought Schlee in, it was like, okay, what are we doing here? Like, do we not believe in Pop at all? I thought of it more as maybe like a safety blanket.
Yeah, I think it is. And some guys are looking for that with the way injuries are and the backups, having to come in. I think that is, you have to play contingencies, and that is a contingency plan, and a smart one in my estimation.
Yeah. And me and Sam also talked about when we were at Ardent, Pop as a younger guy and a flashy guy might look great in shorts in August, but when it's cold and Kyron has to go out of the game for a couple plays and you need a guy to get you a first down, what are the coaches going to do? And I feel like coaches defer to veterans in some of those instances.
Didn't bring him in to give him a set of pom-poms to cheer on the team.
Probably not. Probably not. All right, so we're not going to go into the offense too much overall because we've said a lot. I think a top 30 offense in various statistics, whether it's SP plus, yards per play, is extremely reasonable and a thing that this offense can achieve. Jerome says he can be top 10, that they can be top 10. And I said this to Sam earlier, if the defense was worse, I might believe him because they might have to do more. But let's hope, as we're about to talk about the defense, that that's not the case, and that we may be on, hopefully, cruise control in some of these games late. Chris Marv did well in his first year calling the plays on defense. We only have to replace Peoples, Pollard, Kendricks, and Payne. And I know you see 3 DTs go out the door, you think you're in trouble. Well, just wait till we get to the D line. 28th in yards per play last year. That has been improved year over year since Pry has gotten here. Our yards per play on defense has gotten better. Again, we could do better in scoring defense. That hasn't changed a huge amount, but the passing defense, 4th in pass yards per game allowed last year, only 169 yards per game given up. 2022, we were giving up 235, 236. Last year was 169. Like, the improvement in the pass D has been crazy. We have players there, and I want to ask Robbie about the DBs as we kick off the defense.
Yeah, let's start, since we were hitting on last year. We'll jump right into corner. Derek Jones, a lot again to work with in this team. You got Dorian Strong. His 2023 was outstanding. He led FBS cornerbacks in completion rate. It's like 27%. He was second in passer rating allowed as well. He only allowed 9 catches, I think they said, like, on the season.
It was crazy numbers.
It's just the stats are mind blowing. And then across from him, you have Mansour Delane, and started all 13 games last year. I think he's poised to make a big jump, and I think if he makes even modest improvements off of what was last year, then I think you've got an absolutely stellar kind of set over at in the corner positions.
Do you think both of those guys are all ACC caliber candidates, whatever?
It's going to be tough.
I think I think maybe the caliber. I think when you have somebody like Strong, it distracts from the other person a little bit, so it makes it tough. But I think the talent is possible for that to be the case. Backing them up, you got a pair of sophomores, Lovett and Braylon Johnson. Johnson saw some playing time in 2023. Lovett can move into the nickel role with the departure of Canteen. So the corners look great, and open for your thoughts, unless you want me to jump right into safety.
Well, yeah, sure. I'll say one thing here. Lovett looked great in the times that he had to play last year. Mm-hmm. And I think you're right with the analysis on Strong and Delane. The talent is there. Will they get the recognition? I don't know, but Delane could put up some really good pass defended numbers with Strong on the other side, or if they move Strong inside the nickel, something that Prize also talked about. Delane and maybe Lovett are on the outside, or maybe Braylon Johnson, mm-hmm. but they have options. And more options than I can remember, even though these guys are young, like Lovett and Johnson and even Christian Williams, like, they're young, but I have confidence in them.
I agree. And at safety, you could have a pair of seniors. I'll let the experts, being you two, let me know where it stands between Phillips and Jalen Jones at this point, and in which it's going to be. But you definitely have Jalen Stroman out there. And then one of those other 2 guys in another strong unit at safety for them after the shoulder issues last year for Stroman. I think, knock on wood, a healthy season this year. And you want to talk about an all ACC caliber talent. I think he's right in the mix there. And then what kind of improvement Jalen can be. He's still relatively fresh at the position, which I think also increases his upside. So if he's done a lot of development, you could see him take that starter spot from Moss or or Mose Phillips. But I don't know that it's actually been decided, or if it has, it's going to be here in the final weeks. So I think it's a core group of 4 guys, and 3 known quantities and a 4th that you feel really good about in this position, with some really talented depth behind them. So I don't know what else you could really ask for, other than just praying for good health for each of them.
Yeah, that's what we need there. The 2 deep at safety is it's a little bit on thin ice. It's probably one of our thinner positions, but with the way Reddish has come in, it makes me feel a little bit better. If you have Jones, you have Reddish, you have Stroman and Phillips, the 4 of them together, and Braylon Johnson can move over. Mansour Delane could move over if you had to. Sam, is that the way you feel about the safety position?
Well, first off, you said 2 deep, so drink, everybody.
Yeah, that's true.
And then second, I would say I can see them rotating a little bit more at that position than we think, because I think they struggled at points last year with that first step quickness, or guys getting a little lackadaisical at safety, and that led to a lot of those big runs. I think if you have a fresh Mose Phillips, a fresh Jalen Jones, maybe even a fresh Quinn Reddish in there to just spell Stroman a bit, you're going to feel a little bit more athletic and faster at that back end. And Tech kind of needs that, because the rush defense, especially up the middle, struggled a bit last year. We'll get into that with the defensive line. So I could see them rotating that spot a little bit more than you would normally see safeties rotated.
I think it's going to be Stroman and Phillips, but I agree with Sam that you're going to see Jalen, and they've moved Jalen too. Like, he's played different stuff. They've been trying him out all over the DB room. So he has versatility. It's the health. You have to have Stroman healthy. You have to have him not targeting. That's what we need. And so let's move to linebacker, because we're getting long in the tooth, and I did linebacker, so I'm going to make this as short and sweet as I can. Sam Brumfield comes in. He's going to be our Mike. The coaches have raved about him. He's their guy. And if he can steady that position, I think he's going to be our leading tackler and basically be what Dax was 2 years ago. That is, to me, best case scenario, because there is still a guy coming out of G5. He was still coming into his own. He still has room to grow, and he's bulked up. He's a thick guy, 5'11", 225. I have high hopes for him. A little bit of doubt because of just the way our linebackers played last year. Was it a coaching issue? Was it a talent issue? Was it just too many cooks in the kitchen kind of issue? I don't know. And so I need to see, I guess the proof of concept phrase comes into play here, but I think Sam can be that guy. And then at will, I think it's going to be Keller. I know this is the 3rd year in a row we're hearing about Jaden Keller, and he's played Mike. He's played Will. He's moved all around. He's played a lot of special teams. I mean, he's played a ton of games. He just hasn't. He has less than 50 tackles combined over the last 2 years. He's not on the field in critical situations because he hasn't been trusted, or he just is not getting it. Well, he's been the talk of camp in so many ways yet again. So I think he's going to get the nod over Kelly Lawson. And Kelly Lawson missed all of spring. And we also had Jaden McDonald playing at will last year. So Jaden's probably the backup at Mike now. So they're moving these guys. They're trying to find the best 2 guys to play those traditional ones. At star, there is no question. It is Keontae Jenkins. He comes back. He had 10 tackles for loss last year. And that was even with him having to leave games. I mean, he played all the games, but he didn't really play all the games if you watched. And so 10 tackles for loss, 2nd on the team. We are so much better as a defense when he's firing all cylinders. And so getting him back, I thought, was absolutely huge. Prize extremely comfortable with him. 5th leading tackler, despite having to miss some of that time. And his coverage skills, his linebacker skills, he's got a little bit of everything. So I really like him as the star. I hope the athleticism that we've seen at this position, whether it's a McDonald, whether it's a Lawson, a Keller, a Brumfield, even if going to, Caleb Woodson played a lot last year, and they've been moving him around. Spencer, the other kid that comes in from Miami, maybe he's a 3rd down Mike. Maybe he's a Will on occasion. Who knows? But there is so much talent at the linebacker room that has not bared enough fruit. We need to see it bear fruit this year. Sam, did you have any comments on that?
It's assignment football. That's all it is. If these guys are in the right place at the right time, they're good enough athletes to make the play. So it's all it's about.
Yeah, I'm with you, dude. And I should I mention George Balance just for the sake of it? George Balance, a walk-on for 2 years. That guy, he was in the springtime, was making plays. Maybe he'll get in there. Hopefully we're up in some games. Hopefully he can get in there too. Maybe he's even earned a scholarship by now. I don't know, but shout out to George Balance. D-line was Sam's position.
Yeah, and I think it's a great transition because we talked about the linebackers maybe not being in position last year, maybe not playing up to their athletic potential. Defensive line had a lot of issues too. Virginia Tech as a rush defense last year was 54th in the country, giving up about 150 yards per game. It was 7th in the ACC, but the ACC had some pretty bad rush defenses, so there was a big drop off from 6 to 7. It was about over 20 yards a game. However, in the last 3 games of the season, Tech was only allowing 121 rush yards per game. That would have been good for top 25. So really liking how they ended the season, especially considering 2022, they were at 146 yards per game. So they went from bad to slightly worse. And then the last 3 games, a lot better. So I think this defense kind of figured it out as the season went along. And I also think they're just better at this position. So the 4 deep I have, or 2 deep I have for each starting 4. APR and Burgos, I think, are going to be your starting DNs. And then you'll have Aeneas Peebles and Kamari Copeland probably as your starting defensive tackles.
Wait. You think Burgos is starting rather than Nelson?
I think so, because I think they're going to platoon it a bit.
Okay.
I think they're going to platoon
just wanted to catch that because that's one of the battles that's happening. Yeah.
And I don't know if he'll beat him out for snaps. I don't totally know that because I think Cole Nelson is right there and he's a very good player. And Pry likes his consistency.
Yeah.
He said that for a couple years now. But outside of Nelson, Josh Fuga, Gilliam, and CJ McCray. He was a guy who we thought might be done for the year after an injury in the spring game. Turns out he's getting a lot better. He's a guy who might not be the first month of play, but towards October and a little bit further, we'll probably get some more reps. I think they feel really good about the edge, especially with those top 3. And I think they upgraded the defensive tackle positions. So
now who's starting for you, Sam, if you're next to Peebles? Because you think Peebles is going to be the starter, but who's
Copeland?
Starting? You think it's Copeland?
I mean, you went out and you got one of the best JUCO defensive linemen. And I think Gilliam, although he looks like a monster in all the best ways, very highly touted recruit. I think what you see with Copeland is just
what about
the incumbent?
The incumbent, our boy, Josh Fuga.
Josh Fuga, I think, is on that too. I think they're going to rotate this a lot. And we've talked about this in the offseason. You have to be able to rotate that defensive tackle, especially against up-tempo offenses. I think all the 8 guys are going to get a lot of playing time. I think you could see, some younger guys also get in there as well if Tech is up later in games. But for me, it's the most important players in Aeneas Peebles because they have to be able to clog up on the defensive tackle position. And he's a guy who did that really, really well for Duke. Even when he wasn't making plays, he did a great job of funneling and taking on 2 blockers. Very Ricky Walker-esque, what he was able to do for Virginia Tech.
Yeah, and then Ricky had some great moments for us.
Yeah, Woody Barron as well. Like if you remember Woody Barron, he had some really great games at Virginia Tech. Breakout candidate, I think, is Keshawn Burgos.
I would agree with
he's
that.
He's going to make some massive plays, especially with APR on the other side, potentially getting double teamed or getting the chip. Burgos is going to be one-on-one, and I think that's going to be a recipe for success here.
So our listener Devin, who's been on our show, had asked Robbie last year, is your desire for pass rush and just D-line play in general sated? And this is the year to ask, right? I mean, even though we lost those veterans at DT, they went out and they did such a good job plugging that hole. And you bring back a guy who had 9.5 sacks and 14.5 tackles for loss last year in APR. You've got to be pumped, dude.
I'm ecstatic. And when was the last time that we talked about the defensive line in terms of a lot of people seeing the field without it being out of fear of injury? That was when, and this is it's exciting. I think there's a lot of talent here. I think that there's speed on the outside. I think there's clogging capability in the middle. I am excited. And yes, to your point, last year, because if you remember, my joke last year was like APR and talking about, and that was my crazy prediction was him.
That was your hot take, yeah.
That was like my hot take for him. It bear fruit? Yes. But there was still and obviously room to improve. And I think that's what we're going to end up seeing on the field this year.
Yeah, Chris Coleman talked about the consistency, and he mentioned he had 4 sacks in the one game. He had 8 sacks in 3 games. So that is something that APR can work on. But having a guy like Peebles next to him, an all ACC kind of guy, and all the development that we've seen down that line, and even a Curtis Perry who may come in and make an impact from Alabama. 11 in sacks per game last year, 3 sacks per game as a unit last year. Really nice improvement from the year before. I think we had like 25 sacks. We had 39 last year. I think that number could go way up. We could be top 10 in sacks this year, and you love to see it. All right, let's defense overall. I said the goal for offense was a top 30 offense, reasonable goal. For the defense, a top 25 SP plus defense is a really good goal. We're projected at 35th in the SP plus as a defense. I think top 25 is extremely attainable if they play up to their potential.
Yeah. The 35 doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. It seems like a unit that should be, in the mid 20s, starting on a preseason ranking based on, I guess there is, you see some people hitting, that are out now from last year. And I guess that makes it a little tougher to project into this year. For me, I feel far more confident about this defense than I have in a while at pretty much all three levels.
I think, yeah, and that's a very simple question, right? Like, did they get better across the D line? I think they did. Did they get better at linebacker? I think they have to be because of the addition of Brumfield and just guys being older. And then DB, we lost Peoples, and that's it. Peoples, and that's it. So if the health is there, this defense should be better. It should be better in every way, and they were pretty darn good last year. So quick special teams notes. Number 1 in the conference, according to David Hale in the rankings. I did notice on that David Hale ranking of the special teams for the ACC, Clemson was 16th out of 17.
They were not good last year. Like across the board, they really struggled in special teams last year.
They did. And we got John Love, who made 20 of 22 field goals coming back, all of his extra points. Missed 1 kick inside of 40 yards and 6 of 7 from 40 plus. Peter Moore, all ACC candidate and a captain at our punter. Jalen Lane. I know we might not have Tucker for the season, but Jalen Lane, big play potential from the punt returning position. He was 4th nationally in punt return in 2021. So what is the reason that a guy like Jalen Lane, who's 2 years older and better training and more built, wouldn't be able to be a top 15 punt returner in the nation? He just didn't have the opportunity last year. So we should be good there. And then, of course, our all-American level kick returner in Tootin. Might not suit Robbie's wants or desires, but he is that good. Right, Sam?
Very, very good. I feel great about the special teams and what they're doing. Having athletes out there, but also they're gonna have some other guys. Takai Heath is a guy who could get back there. Xavier Turner Bradshaw is a guy who could get back there. So you feel like as this roster continues to get better, they can put some of those more second, third string guys in there and still not really have that much of a drop off in the skill.
Absolutely. When your roster gets better, your special teams get better. It's just how it works. 2024 prediction time, fellas. We got some tough games. We got losses you could predict. I'm curious, before we get to record predictions, do you guys have a prediction that you might consider a hot take? Do you just have a hot take you want to get off your chest at this stage of the game? We're 90 minutes in, so there's little chance that anyone's going to hear this anyway. But I need to get a hot take from one of you guys.
I got one.
Okay.
I think the defense carries this team in 4 to 5 games this year. Which, with everything we just said and this about this offense, would be surprising, but that is and it has to be a hot take, right? So this is kind of the stretch beyond what I actually think is going to play out. But I'm going to go with 4 to 5 games that the defense actually carries us, either to keep us close in the game or to potentially win a game.
So this is like old school Virginia Tech. The offense falls short. The defense has to come through and basically win the game for us. I got you. Right. Sam, we're in the hot take cam. What do you got as a hot take?
I've said this before on the show, and I'm going to go with it until I'm proven wrong, which might be week 1. Outscore your first 4 opponents, your non-conference opponents, by 100. That's my goal. I want them to beat the ever-living crap out of some of these teams. And I think they can. We're going to talk about it this season, but the Ferentz line, 25 points per game. It's what Ferentz, the offensive coordinator, Iowa, needed to get to save his job. He did not get that. To me, that's going to be like the line of demarcation for this defense. If Tech keeps a team under 25, they win. That's kind of my thought process in this season. And I don't think they play a very good offense to start the year. Vandy's going to be tough. Out of those first 4, I think Vandy's going to be the toughest offense.
I think you're right. I don't think there's any doubt that you're correct on that one. We'll do a snake draft style because I got 2 hot takes, and then we can go back to one of you guys if you got another one. My first one, 50 sacks this year as a team.
Wow.
We had 39 last year.
What
39 when we played not very well for a few games. We had 48 in 2014. That was the year we had Ekanum and Daddy. But the defensive tackle play that year struggled because Luther Maddie only played 4 games. He injured his knee. He couldn't play. And we were playing Corey Marshall, Woody Barron, who are not very big at defensive tackle. And we were playing Nigel Williams, who was big, but was a quote-unquote lesser player, wasn't supposed to have to start many games. So 50 sacks is my hot take. I think the defense is capable. I think with the defensive line strengths that we just all laid out, they can do it. So that's my first hot take.
Was that lobster hands here? Or
no, that was the good year, Robbie. I think that was the good year for Meccano.
So
I think
it was the next year, maybe that was lobster hands.
Yeah, because that was the first year of the pod. So that was lobster hands. It was 15. Yeah.
I mean, 50 would probably lead the nation.
I think we can do it, dude. I really do.
Last year, Penn State was 49.
All right. Do you guys have a hot take before I do my second one?
I'm out of hot takes. It took a lot to go out on the limb for that one that I already had after we talked up the offense.
My second one's not as hot. It's a warm take.
It's a lukewarm take. Fire away.
Drones wins ACC Player of the Year.
Ooh,
I kind of like that.
And if you think about who his competition is, we're talking about Haynes King, who's probably going to go 6-6.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to put up numbers, but he's going to go 6-6. That will probably factor into the voters' mentality. Cam Ward, I'm betting against the Miami BS. That's the thing. It's like because I think it's if I'm really thinking about ACC Player of the Year, the biggest competition is Cam Ward because the team will probably be pretty good and he's got great weapons. So, Drone's hot take. ACC Player of the Year, but it's a warm take. Like I said, it's very doable.
He's up there.
What's the other competition? Is it DJU? Is it Castellanos? Is it Jaden Ott, Phil Maffa, like Omarion Hampton? This is the competition.
Damian Martinez.
Damian Martinez is a good one.
My problem with those is the same thing. The same problem that I have with the Heisman is it's all stat driven, and that bugs me. Right? It is. Like especially at the quarterback position, which is what's your goal going out there as a quarterback? Protect the football and win the football game. That's it. It's not how many touchdowns you put up. It's not how many yards you put up. It should not be any of those things. So it's just people don't, and we'll get back to the Colby Dant issue. People don't watch the games. They look at the stat box afterwards. Yep. So that's the only reason I think that might be a hotter take is, just because of the voting public and the way that they look at, or the voting, I guess it would be beat writers and the way that they look at the games.
Dark horse for ACC Player of the Year. That's not a Hokie. I mean, because you could say APR, you could say Tootin, whatever. Grayson McCall at NC State, because of the weapons they have, and because I don't think the defense is as good as it was a year ago, he could put up some numbers and they could be 9-3. And if they're 9-3 and he puts up numbers, he's going to be in the conversation.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I think Damian Martinez is a guy who's been slept on in these conversations.
He has been, because he's amazingly good.
Really good running back, going to be a great offense.
He's the running back from Miami, if people don't know.
Yeah, he was at Oregon State for a few years and now at Miami. So,
all right, so let's do record predictions.
Oh,
no hot takes, just measured analysis here.
Here's a hot take of sorts for the record prediction. This is not talking to anybody here. You can't go with an 8-4 prediction this year, right? I think you have 8-4 doesn't exist. You have to take that out. If you're predicting, you've got to go either 9-3 or above, or you have to go 7-5 or below.
Shit just hits the fan.
You can't just go 8-4 and it's we have 3 tough teams and then I'll throw in another kind of BS loss because it's the ACC. That is just, that doesn't
You got to
work.
stick your neck out a little here.
Yes. You got to go either high, you're either leaning forward or you're leaning back on this team.
All right. So with that lead up, Rob, what's your record prediction?
Yeah.
9-3.
Okay.
I have 9-3. I think that, I don't want to ruin it for your
no, go
I'm
ahead.
Go game by game. But I think the losses, I think this year, which is a positive thing. I'm saying a positive thing about Virginia Tech, which may be a kind of a negative. Sam talked about winning the big games. I think we hold serve against the teams that we're supposed to, which is not common for this team. And I think the losses may end up being Miami, Rutgers, and Clemson, and it being a very chalk kind of situation for us going into the season, which is very uncharacteristic of the ACC in general and very uncharacteristic of the Hokies over the last 15 years.
No, you're right on. If it went chalk like that, I would find that surprising, but maybe that will happen under Coach Pride.
I cheers to that all day long.
Is that your record prediction, or you got a record?
Absolutely not.
Okay. All right. Sam, give us yours.
10-2. Okay.
Oh,
I'm sick of playing the bottom of the. It's for me, the bottom is if Kyron Drones gets hurt the first play of the Vanderbilt game, what is this team's record? I think it's 7-5 with Colin Schley. That's my bottom.
That's top. I would say it's 8-4. Robbie's don't touch the third rail, 8-4. That's if Drones gets hurt, we go 8-4. That's what I think.
I think, and I think the ceiling is 11. I don't see this team getting to 12-0. That is not really for me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's really a possibility. But I'm tired of going with the bottom or the middle of these predictions. I'm tired of 6, 7, 8 wins. 10-2. There's absolutely zero reason for this team to not be 10-2. They would have to lose a game to a team that is worse than them.
But that's what we do.
I mean, but here is also, and I've talked about this before, every year since the college football playoff has been a thing, and since the transfers have been a thing and recruiting has been what it has, every year a team goes from 500 to 10 wins.
Yes.
And it's usually a team like Missouri, Oklahoma State, Washington. Yes. They're not the big boys who had a bad year. They're upper mid tier.
They're silent builders. Yeah, yes. Silent builders for a year and a roster that looks exactly like what Virginia Tech looks like this year.
Exactly.
If you look at like a Washington when they were like good, or an Oklahoma State when they were good and stuff like that, it was kind of like silent. Then people that were in the know were like, hey, that team's going to be really freaking good next year. That's like a top 5 team. And you're like, wait, what? And then all of a sudden you look at the roster and you're like, this team is loaded. So, yeah.
Yep. And Missouri did it with a much tougher schedule. Washington did it with a much tougher schedule. Oklahoma State did it with a much tougher schedule. I think the schedule, the roster, it all plays to 10 wins for me. Back to the Beamer years, 10 wins a year. Boom.
I absolutely love it, Sam. And I agree that we very well could get to 10 wins if we play 13 or 14 games. Because I am going with 9-3 as my prediction as well. I've been on this. I think we are at the stage in our build where I think we're going to beat Clemson. I think that this whole win a big game, play a game at home with Enter Sandman playing where we don't fall on our face, I think it's the Clemson game. I really do. But we are going to lose 1 or 2 games to a bad team. More like Miami could be a loss, but like Syracuse, Stanford, I don't know. But like that stupid loss is coming, in my opinion. I appreciate everything Coach Pry has done in Norton, building the roster, whatever. It's incredible. It's absolutely so, in 2 years, 3 years time, to have gone to what we were and in the absolute basement of roster and retention and the way it was all managed to where we are now. It's night and day. But I still think this team needs to learn how to consistently bring it every week, but it doesn't mean we can't go 9-3. And
so, yeah, let me add to that. So, was it Oklahoma State when they had that great year and they won? Or was it TCU where they won all those close games? Like it was really close.
It was TCU.
It was TCU
when they made the Natty. They won like 4 games by a field goal.
Yes, yeah.
So what I think could get Hokie fans excited, right? We're at the end of a long podcast here, is this is the first time in a long time for Virginia Tech that if we're down by 7 or 10 and there's like 5 minutes left in the game or 7 minutes left in the game, this team has the offensive potential with the quarterback and the wide receivers and the running backs to come back and win those games the way that TCU did that year. And I'm not saying that they have the talent necessarily at TCU, but like
they might.
In years past, when we were in that position with 5 minutes to go, I might as well just left. Like I didn't even need to watch the game. Like we were not built for that type of situation. And this is the first time in a long time that the talent at least speaks to the ability to, not shit ourselves if you're down by a touchdown with 5 minutes left in the game. And that I have been more fearful of being down by 7 points, than I could, ever wish to on my worst enemy over the last, 8 years.
Yeah. And even if you're up by 3 or 4 or 7 going into that fourth quarter, to have this kind of offense, to have a quarterback that you believe that you can trust is a major difference. And we're not too far off. We're talking about 9-3. Sam likes 10-2, but if either of those come to fruition, I will be ecstatic. And you know what? Treadmill horse, yeah. And I'm drinking tiger blood over here. So this is that carousel imperial sour. Look at this thing in the glass. It's insane.
Looks
like my shirt. Like it's a maroon beer.
This is like Hostel 4 over here. You just murdered somebody in the bathroom.
But Treadmill horse he asked me for ACC predictions because he's putting them on his website.
Yeah.
And I said Virginia Tech and Florida State in the ACC championship game at 9-3, because I believe that if we were to win the Clemson game, which is part of my prediction, that we would have the tiebreakers to play in the ACC title game at 9-3. I actually had a bunch of teams I think are going to finish 9-3, including us, NC State, Clemson, Miami, and Louisville. Like I think all 5 of us could be 9-3 with a bunch of other ACC teams having very terrible years. But regardless, I think we are good enough to play in the ACC title. Do I think we have a good percentage chance of winning the ACC title? No, I don't. But 9-3 would be amazing, and we'd be back on track with the recruiting coming around, the relationships in the state coming around, that I would be encouraged. I'd be extremely encouraged if we were able to finish the regular season at 9-3.
We talked in the past a lot, Pete, about teams like Virginia Tech in the new system have to, the way that Washington has and an Oklahoma State has and a TCU did and those sorts of things, they have to take advantage of those years where the roster comes together in order to make a statement on a national scale. And that can pay dividends for the next 5 to 7 years. And, you know, if you want to look at Virginia Tech, this is most certainly one of those years that, you know, they need to do it with the schedule. Like you need all of those things to come together, all of those guys to return from last year, all of those things need to all happen in the same year. And then you got to perform at the level that you need to. And I say 9-3, you know, secretly I'm sitting there looking at this and being like, man, there's an outside shot at really getting into the playoff with this team, with the caliber and all those sorts of things.
It really is.
And that was actually on my list of like playoff contention and what you guys actually think about that.
I mean, it's a possibility. I could see with this schedule, Tech could very easily be team 13, 14, or 15, even with a 10-2 record without the ACC title, which would be 10-3 at that point. I think that's still a very, very successful season, but that's the nature of having a schedule like this, is you don't really get the benefit of the doubt. I do. Action Network has Virginia Tech as the like 9th seed, I believe. And so it's going to be a possibility, but it's going to be pretty tough. They're going to have to do a really special year. They're going to have to beat the crap out of some opponents to get some style points. But I think for Virginia Tech, this is the year, man. It's not going to get much better than this.
You guys just both got me like absolutely titillated talking about this coming together and all the things that had to happen to get us to this point. And you're right. Like it takes so many little things to like get it all to where we are right now, less than 2 weeks before Vandy.
If they keep it close or somehow pull off a victory against Miami, like the fan base, I don't think is even they're going to be excited because it was Miami. I don't think that the common fan base is going to really understand what that sets Virginia Tech up potentially for. Like if that were to happen, I would be shitting myself. Like that would be looking at this schedule and what they have left for the year.
Yeah.
I'd be like, man, we could lose a BC and still be in great shape. Like on this season, like we could lose one of those stupid games and still be great. Yeah.
All right. We are going to get out of here on that note because I absolutely love what Rob just said there. I just need from you guys 2 very quick picks. Week 0 picks. Pick'em is starting. Make sure you log in, you click, you get into the 2D Pick'em. We will send out a prize for the winner. Florida State -11 against Georgia Tech. Sam, what do you got in Ireland?
Georgia Tech +11.5. I feel good about them. They play up to their opponent. It's going to be weird. A lot of new weapons. I think we underestimate how weird playing a game in Ireland is because of what a blowout it was last year with Notre Dame and Navy. So give me the Jackets plus the points.
Robbie?
I've got FSU. There's too much beer running around for the nerds. Like, I don't know that they're.
That's fair. That's a good point. That's a fair point. I can't argue that with numbers.
I think I like GT against the number. But so many people like GT against the number, it concerns me. I'm still going to take the Bees. We'll see what happens. SMU, this is the only other game we're going to talk about. SMU -27 against Nevada. Why is this line so big, Sam?
It's because SMU is really good. Nevada's really, really bad. Jeff Choate, really, really great football coach. took over Nevada. He's got an uphill battle. They'll be starting 2 freshmen on the offensive line. Not a good sign against that SMU pass rush. And they're starting a quarterback who in about 11 games has only 6 touchdown passes. So Nevada is going to be pretty tough. 2-3 wins maybe for the Wolfpack this year. SMU pretty good. I personally have SMU minus 27 in this game, and I feel decently confident about it.
Rob, do you have a pick for this game?
Yeah, I have SMU as well. I think they're going to want to come out firing and really kind of set a tone early on. And this is an opponent that they could I think walk all over.
This is for them last year. This is the kind of game where they would win like 55-3. Like they did that a lot. It's on the road. It's week 1, but based on what they've done and the continuity of the roster they have, I'll go SMU minus 27 as well. All right, that's going to do it for picks. We will be back on Monday, on College Football Monday, our first episode of the season. Robbie, thank you for coming back, doing the 10th season preview with us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. And if you want to hop on at any point during the season, when the deals give you a break.
Get this business integrated and get some sleep, I will most certainly take you up on that.
Once FSU and Clemson join the Big 12, you will be free for a couple of weeks to come join us. And Sam, thank you for preparing. This was a lot of notes. This was a lot of shit. I mean, we're almost 2 hours in. I don't know what I'm going to do with this monster pod, but it was so much fun. I loved every minute of it.
All right. Hey, guys, thanks so much, and keep up the good work. It sounds ever better than ever. It's awesome.
All right. Make sure you're subscribed to the Sons of Saturday YouTube channel, to Too Deep, both on Spotify, Apple Podcast, everywhere you get your podcast. And also make sure you check out Pat and Billy. Maybe you don't like them, give them another try. I mean, maybe they've changed. Maybe they're different now. And this season is the season. You want to be locked into everything the Sons of Saturday are doing, because we're going to be covering everything like crazy. Sam knows, he's running the website. So until next time, go Hokies.
Go.